Sally Cragin.
Hi, I'm going to read a story which may seem to some of you to have an awful lot of strange sounding names and stuff like that, but don't worry about following it because I just found it. It's 4 years old and it's time for a rewrite. But anyway, 60th wedding anniversary. Amu means uncle by way of being one's father's brother in Armenian. And though our Amu's real name was Sarkis, Americanized to Sam, he had reached that state of venerable desiccation where a title served as well as any name. He is married to Antirene in Haverhill, who got the regional title to distinguish her from Antirene down the street. These Antirenes are alike, though our Fitchburg aunt never had children. Both have great spirit. I did not know our Haverhill aunt, but on the occasion of her 60th wedding anniversary, she was spry and merry. The party was in a sour-smelling and low-ceilinged presidential room in the Cottage Crest restaurant in Waltham. The couple dressed in identical navy blue. Her eyes were brighter than her husband's, though her tears never brimmed. Amu paid little attention to the event and plucked and ate grapes from the head table centerpiece before the prayer. When the cake finally emerged, Amu perversely refused to kiss the bride, no matter how loudly we encouraged him to, in repeated choruses of jovial off-key song. My brother Hal and I sat next to each other across from my mother and our Uncle George. On my left was Joseph Tabedian, and on Harold's right was Johnny Kachabian. Neither was married. Opposite us sat a prosperous, balding fellow who turned out to be the owner of the Cragin Rug Gallery in Brookline. Somewhere was a brother-in-law who owned the Sheraton Commander Hotel, which is down the street from my Harvard Square studio. Pretty rich company, but on the 60th wedding anniversary, we were all Armenian together, even if barely cousins. The Cragin fellow encouraged me to visit the Brattle Street Armenian Orthodox Church on the second Sunday in December to partake of ethnic caroling and dancing. I smiled at it intensely with my teeth clenched in an ordat, which is the Armenian word for mixed blood way, and realized that my city relatives were solidly sunk in their traditions. They were raised in Armenian Orthodox churches in pretty-sounding towns like Lynn, Bradford, and Magnolia. They gravitated towards other Armenians, and there were other Armenians there. My grandfather, Amu's younger brother Krikor, had settled in Fitchburg in north-central Massachusetts. Over a half-century, he acquired a lot of property. Cleaning stores were the mainstay of the empire, and he had had 7 once. But Granddaddy liked offbeat property, too. Bowling alleys, movie theaters, municipal buildings, tenements, jails, and motels. In our part of the Commonwealth, there are few Armenians, probably no more than a dozen families. Naturally, the rival dry cleaner, City Cleaners, was owned by an Armenian, and when my mother was young, it was suggested, not entirely playfully either, that she marry the City Cleaner's heir. As it was, my mother and the 3 of her 5 siblings who married found mates outside the ethnicity. Some of us have German blood, others Italian, and Hal and I have Yankee Protestant ancestry, but we are all happily Ordat. At the anniversary, the people my mother's age, the second generation now in their 40s and 50s, had yet to marry. They lived together, sisters and brothers sharing ownership in business ventures. Why marry, my mother shrugged. Keep the money in the family. She was right. The Cragin Rug Gallery owner sat next to his partner, his sister, whose hooded eyes compensated for a weak chin. Somewhere between the meal, quite nice, fantail shrimp or roast beef, and coffee, she hissed a few words to Mr. Cragin and bolted. Someone forgot to bring a camera. Joseph Tabedian sat next to his sister, who was a teacher and in better temper. Amu and Irene looked like siblings in the way that old people do. My brother Hal and I sat next to each other and touched knees when someone incredible, like tiny daft Esther, who wore a skull cap made of mink that completely concealed her sparse hair, passed our way. My mother and her brother George Josh, none of us want the Star Cleaners or the Motel Linda, which my grandmother owns and operates like a prime-time soap opera. The girl, you know, the young one, she'd say, she's going to have a little baby, and she came in, not yesterday, you know, Tuesday, and she's big, and her arm was, oh my God, I didn't believe it. My God, I says to her, what happened to you? And her fellow saw her flirting, and he twisted her arm. She's going to have a baby in that winter, and he says, you shouldn't be on your feet. Here, let me get you a stool. That young mother and the methadone clinic girl, whose mother is Grandmummy's crony, are among the stellar motel characters. Grandmummy really thrives on it. At the other tables were what Hal and I presumed to be the widows and orphans over 70. They all spoke Armenian. Uncle George, who is a linguist among other peculiar vocations, chess bureaucrat, magazine editor, exchanged grinning pleasantries with them in the mother tongue. Mother, since the old men were nowhere to be seen, save for Amu and our grandfather. Amu, Krikor, and their father had survived the Turks, who'd wiped out the rest of the family and most of their village nearly 70 years ago. After the meal, Joseph Tavidian arranged groups of the clan for portraits. He was bored with a career in welfare services and augmented an artistic inclination with portrait photography. His taste in pictures was too formal for me. Only the married couples could link arms, though parents and children could be next to one another. On 2 chairs sat Amu and Irene through about 12 different arrangements, the Kachavians, the Tavidians, the Colton Rug Gallery clan, and the Marjanians. There must be a language to those stilted poses. Placing the dieted-down daughters and beefy sons behind short, compact parents might communicate a sense of species, a family order to the even more diluted future generations. We stood still and looked into Joseph's black, bland lens. Thank you.